Hey everyone, and welcome back to AI Podcast for part 9
9.
of our 10-part series all about AI voice synthesis.
Whoa, 9 down, 1 to go. It's crazy how fast these episodes are flying by.
I know, right?
Duh.
Feels like just yesterday we were breaking down those old school robotic text-to-speech systems.
Yeah, but so much has changed since then, right?
Oh, absolutely.
AI voices are almost indistinguishable from human voices now.
And that's where things get really interesting
And maybe...
and a little unsettling.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so for anyone just joining us, over the past 8 episodes, we've been taking a deep dive into the tech behind AI voice synthesis.
How it works, how it's evolved.
And some of the amazing things it can do.
Yeah.
But today, we're changing things up a bit.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a closer look at the ethical and social implications.
Buckle up, folks.
It's about to get real.
This is where things get really fascinating, honestly.
Yeah.
We have this technology that can literally give voice to the voiceless, create totally immersive entertainment experiences. Yeah.
And bridge language barriers like we've never seen before.
Yeah, like it's mind-blowing.
But it also presents us with this whole new set of challenges.
So we gotta face head on.
Address, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we're standing on the edge of this incredible future where, like, anyone's voice can be perfectly replicated.
Whoa.
Think about the implications of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
creating hyper-realistic dubbing for films,
Uh-huh.
making information accessible to everyone through text-to-speech, or even giving a voice back to those who've lost theirs due to medical conditions.
The potential is just
It's mind-boggling.
mind-boggling, yeah.
And it's not just about, like, replicating existing voices,
No.
right? Like, imagine creating entirely new voices,
Yeah.
unique voices for, like, virtual assistants,
Uh-huh.
characters in video games, or even,
Oh, video games would be cool.
yeah, or even personalized audiobooks.
Limitless.
The creative possibilities are
Audiobooks.
practically limitless.
Yeah.
But, as you hinted at earlier,
Mm.
there's a darker side to this technology.
Uh-huh.
We're talking about privacy concerns, the potential for malicious use, and even the psychological impact of interacting with voices that are so real.
It's like holding a really, really powerful tool in our hands.
They blur the lines between human and machine.
Right. We can use it to build incredible things,
Right.
but we gotta be careful not to misuse it.
Let's start with the most immediate concern, privacy.
Okay.
We've talked before about how sophisticated these AI models are, right?
Yeah.
With just a small audio sample, they can learn to mimic a person's voice with incredible accuracy.
It's scary how accurate it is.
It raises some serious questions about consent and unauthorized use.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. You're scrolling through your social media feed,
Right.
and you see a video of your friend saying something.
Outrageous.
Yeah, something crazy.
Uh-huh.
But what if it wasn't actually your friend? What if it was a deep fake?
Well,
An AI-generated replica of their voice?
without their permission.
Yeah. Without their knowledge, yeah.
That's what's so unsettling about this technology, right?
It is!
It makes you question everything you hear.
Yeah, you can't believe anything you see.
It undermines our ability to trust what we see and hear online, which has huge implications
For everything.
for everything from journalism to our personal relationships.
Yeah, and it's not just about protecting ourselves from being tricked.
Right.
The very idea that our voices, like our unique vocal fingerprints,
Right.
can be replicated and used without our consent.
Yeah,
That's a fundamental violation of privacy.
it is.
It raises a whole bunch of new legal and ethical questions about ownership and control in the digital age.
That brings up a concept we've touched on before, vocal likeness.
Vocal likeness, yeah.
Can you explain what that is and why it's becoming such a hot topic?
Sure.
Okay.
So in simple terms, vocal likeness refers to the unique characteristics of a person's voice,
Okay.
the elements that make it identifiable and distinct.
So like a vocal fingerprint?
Yeah, it's kind of like a vocal fingerprint.
Right.
And as AI technology gets better at replicating those fingerprints, the question of who owns and controls them becomes really important.
So it's not just about the words being spoken, but the voice itself becomes a form of intellectual property that needs to be protected.
Right. Imagine a company using an AI to recreate the voice of a famous actor for a commercial without the actor's consent.
Interesting.
That raises some serious legal and ethical questions about who has the right to profit from that voice
Yeah.
and whether the actor has any recourse.
It's like a whole new frontier of intellectual property rights is emerging,
It
and
is.
we're just starting to grapple with the implications.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
But also a little scary, honestly.
Yeah, a little bit scary.
It makes us rethink how we value and protect something as basic as our voices in a world where technology is blurring the lines between the real and the artificial.
And on that note, let's move on to another major concern. The potential for malicious use.
Okay.
We're not just talking about prank calls or silly imitations.
No, this is serious stuff.
AI voice synthesis can be used to commit fraud, spread disinformation,
Mm-hmm.
and even inflict emotional harm on a massive scale.
Unfortunately, as this technology becomes more accessible and realistic, the potential for misuse skyrockets.
So let's paint a picture for our listeners.
Okay.
Imagine a scammer using an AI to clone the voice of a CEO
Okay.
and then calling an employee, instructing them to transfer a large sum of money to a fraudulent account.
This type of scam, we call it vishing or voice phishing.
Oh, phishing.
It's already happening.
Really?
And it's incredibly effective because the AI-generated voice is so convincing.
Wow.
People are more likely to trust a voice that sounds familiar, even if they have a bad feeling about it.
And it's not just about financial scams, right?
Yeah.
Think about the potential for political manipulation or spreading disinformation during an election.
Right.
Imagine a fake audio clip of a candidate making inflammatory remarks going viral online.
Yeah, that could sway public opinion, incite violence, or even undermine democracy. And the scary part is, as the technology gets better, it's becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between real and fake audio.
It's a scary thought.
We're entering a world where we can't even trust our own ears.
It makes you wonder, if we can't trust what we hear, what can we trust?
Right. And more importantly, what can we do about it?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's the question.
And the answer is multifaceted.
Yeah, it involves technological solutions, legal frameworks, and a fundamental shift in how we think about information in the digital age.
So it's not just a tech issue.
Nope,
It's a societal issue that requires a collective effort.
it's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We need to be having these conversations, raising awareness, and working together to find solutions that ensure this technology is used ethically.
Well said.
Thanks.
Now, before we get too deep into the solutions,
Okay.
let's take a closer look at the psychological impact of interacting with these incredibly realistic AI voices.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about manipulation or deception,
Mm.
right?
No, it's deeper than that.
There's a whole other layer here that has to do with how our brains perceive and respond to these voices on an emotional level.
Right, because as these AI voices get more sophisticated, they're not just conveying information.
Right.
They're evoking emotions, forging connections,
Wow.
and even blurring the lines between reality and virtuality.
We've talked about the potential for manipulation and deception,
Right.
but there's also the potential for these voices to create genuine emotional responses, both good and bad.
Imagine someone who's lost a loved one finding comfort in an AI voice that can replicate their voice and personality.
Yeah, well, that's powerful.
It could be healing, you know,
Yeah.
but it could also lead to unhealthy attachments
Right.
or a blurring of the lines between reality and fantasy.
It's like we're opening Pandora's box of emotional experiences.
It is, kind
And
of.
we're not entirely sure what we're going to find.
We need to proceed with caution, you know.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the consequences,
Oh.
but also be open to the possibility that these voices can enrich our lives in ways we can't even imagine.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And one that we need to navigate thoughtfully.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something we touched upon earlier.
Okay.
The idea of vocal likeness as a form of intellectual property.
Right, because as AI becomes more adept at replicating voices, it raises questions about ownership and control.
Because if someone can create a perfect replica of your voice, they could potentially use it without your permission for all sorts of things.
Like commercials, audiobooks, even deepfakes.
Right, things that could damage your reputation.
It raises those fundamental questions.
Yeah.
Who owns the rights to a person's voice?
Mm-hmm.
How do you prove you own it? And what legal options do you have if someone uses your voice without your permission?
It's like we're entering a new world of intellectual property rights, where our voices themselves become valuable assets
They do.
that need to be protected.
Yeah, and our current laws aren't really ready for this.
Yeah, they're not.
We need to start thinking about how we can update them to protect vocal likeness in the digital age.
It's a big challenge,
Huge challenge.
but one that we need to address head on if we want to ensure that our voices remain our own.
Our voices are ours.
protected from unauthorized use and exploitation.
I think it all comes down to balance.
Balance.
Innovation and responsibility.
Yeah.
We need to embrace the amazing potential of AI voice synthesis while being mindful of the ethical and social implications.
And that brings us to the big question. How do we do that?
The big question, yeah.
How do we harness the power of this technology for good while mitigating the risks?
That's what we're going to talk about in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll be discussing some of the solutions being proposed, from technological safeguards to ethical guidelines and legal frameworks.
Sounds good.
But that's for tomorrow.
So be sure to tune in for the final part of this 10-part series as we wrap up our exploration of AI voice synthesis